If you have something to say it to my face. If you remember Kamala Harris introducing herself to the American population during her campaign speeches across the country, that was one particular line that she said, particularly to Donald Trump as she was introducing herself to the world. If you have something to say it to my face. Hey TikTok, Angela Parker, aka Boozy Bible Scholar, and that is the phrase that we will think about as we look at Galatians chapter 2, Paul's language about resisting Cephas to his face in that particular text of Galatians chapter 2, around verse 11, where he says, I withstood Cephas to his face. And we'll have a conversation about leadership in the wake of the first presidential debate that occurred last night, September 10th. So it is Wednesday, September 11th, and I'll talk about the debate a little bit and Kamala Harris's say it to my face comment. As I do that, I will put this eye look together using my Danessa Myricks Lightworks 6 palette. That's just a hot new release that's come out through Sephora and the Danessa Myricks website. So if you're interested in seeing how I got this look and having a conversation on Kamala Harris's say it to my face comment and the fact that Donald Trump could not look at her once during that debate, let's have that conversation. Say it to my face. That was the iconic line that Kamala Harris said during her introduction to the world in her political speech during her campaign across the world, introducing herself to the American people. I'm starting with buff in my palette, my Biba palette from Natasha Denona. I'm going to put that into my crease. Say it to my face. And I was thinking about the debate from last night and how Donald Trump could not even look at her in her face during the 90 plus minutes of the debate. And I actually went to Galatians chapter 2. Galatians chapter 2 verses, somewhere around verse 11. And at around verse 11, Paul starts talking about Peter. And he says in the Greek, ate ke elthein kephas es antioxen, that's Antioch. And he says, kata prosopan auto antestain, meaning something like when Peter came to Antioch, and really when Cephas, that's Aramaic for stone, when Cephas came to Antioch, I withstood him, or I resisted him to his face because he stood to be blamed. And what did Peter stand to be blamed for? He stood to be blamed for eating with the nations, and I always translate ethne in Galatians as nations and not as Gentiles. He stood to be blamed for eating with the nations, but when the brothers from the Judeans, from the circumcision came in, he withdrew from eating with the nations and he acted brand new, essentially. And so this sets up Paul's conversation about being Jew versus Gentile. And now I'm going in with spot. It's this black shade, and I'm going to put it on my crease. And so I like Paul's language of I withstood him to his face, because in the book of Galatians, Paul actually begins to talk about the Judean leaders as supposed pillars of the church. And if you don't read Galatians chapter 2 and realize that Paul is the master of throwing shade, he is the master of throwing shade, meaning Paul, as he is developing in his own apostleship, he talks about the Judean leaders as stuloi, as pillars, but he uses the language of dikeo. Dikeo is the verb for seeming to be something. And he talks about the Judean leaders as, I'm trying to find it on my screen. he talks about them as duque untes, the seeming to be something leaders, the seeming to be something. He never calls them leaders, but he calls them oi decuntes, the seeming to be something. So he never calls them leaders he never calls them leaders. That's what a lot of the translations imply them to be. So your translations imply them to be leaders, but Paul never calls them leaders. And when I think about the debate from last night, Kamala Harris never calls Donald Trump a leader. She actually called him a disgrace. And Donald Trump never looked at her to her face. He never acted as a leader. He only seemed to be something. And when I was watching it, I was reminded about Kamala Harris's exhortation to Donald Trump to say it to my face. And now that you're afraid because I put all this black on my eye, I'm going in with the Danessa Myricks Lightworks 6 palette, which has all of these wonderful chrome multi-shade colors, and they change with a black base. So that's what I'm starting. I'm starting with this pink side, and I don't know the names yet. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of pink, purple on top of the middle part of this black base. And I'm going to go back to a TikTok trend that was earlier in the summer, in the beginning of the summertime. The trend of women, would they rather be in the forest with an unknown man versus a bear? And then that trend morphed into, would women rather enter a boardroom with and this is black women, would they rather enter a boardroom with a white male in the boardroom or with a white female in the boardroom? And why am I talking about this? Well, it's been interesting to watch the CNN and MSNBC conveners talk to undecided voters in Arizona and in Pennsylvania. And there's something that I've noticed about undecided voters in Arizona and Pennsylvania. Those undecided voters who remain undecided or who then decide that they're still going to vote for Donald Trump tend to be white women. And I implore you to watch the YouTube clips of Arizona voters and Philadelphia voters who are undecided in the NBC and CNN groups who then say they're going to vote for Donald Trump or say that they are going to opt out of voting. They tend to be white women, except the one CNN voter from the DNC election night who was an Hispanic looking man who said he was going to vote for Donald Trump. But the majority are white women. And it's just making me think about, what is it with white women who will not vote for Kamala Harris no matter what? So as I put these colors on my eyes, I'm going to remind us that no matter what, we have to clean up our thinking, but I don't have my cleanup cloth with me. So here is the final look, and I've used my Danessa Myricks Lightworks 5 palette along with my Natasha Denona Viva palette, and my final look with my Sephora lip gloss. And yeah, thank you for sticking around with me as I've just thought about Galatians chapter 2 and Kamala Harris say it to my face comment, in addition to the conversation about women and white women, specifically as Black women enter the boardroom. My scent of the day is Frederick Malle Portrait of a Lady, and I'm going to head out and get some things done for my day. So, as always, TikTok, Angela Parker, aka Boozy Bible Scholar. reminding you to be bold, be brave, be brilliant, and if you would, please like, comment, and repost this video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.